The Houston Texans have played professional football for 21 full seasons. They've yet to make even a conference championship game. As the newest team in the NFL, it took them 10 years to make their first playoff game, longer than any of the previous 5 expansion teams before them. They've had just one Hall of Famer ever play for them, and he absolutely hates the franchise. So, my question is, would life really be all that different if the Houston Texans never existed at all? 1997. The Houston Oilers, after spending 36 years in the Space City, are picked up and moved to Tennessee, much to the chagrin of locals. They would go on to become the modern-day Titans, but the move left Houston football fans in disarray. Faced with years of no home football team, the city of Houston is lachrymose. By 2000, it's the 4th largest US city, and one of just 2 in the top 8 with no football team. One attempt to bring a professional hockey franchise to Houston quickly fell through, even though that same stat held true in the NHL. But before long, Houston was back with a bid for the NFL. You see, the Cleveland Browns had just rejoined the NFL in 1999, yielding an odd and awkward number of 31 total teams in the league. This meant one more new franchise to balance things out was imminent. The only question, which city deserves the new football team? Out of plenty of candidates, Los Angeles and Houston were the frontrunners, but the current NFL owners voted 29-2 to award Los Angeles the 32nd NFL franchise. Another LA team was penciled in to fill the void the Chargers and Raiders had left. However, the NFL got a good whiff of California politics, we'll say, and the newest Los Angeles team fell apart before it even had a name. And from those ruins, the city of Houston, who had already proven they could love and support a team successfully, was re-gifted an NFL franchise by a unanimous vote, this time flipped in their favor. Now, hindsight being 2020, it's sort of jarring that Houston was passed up in the first place to try and jam an NFL team into a media market that already had 2 NBA teams and an NHL team, but bygones. And over the next couple years, some papers were pushed, a name was chosen, and in 2002, the Houston Texans officially joined the NFL as the 32nd franchise. From that moment, 22 years ago, to today, there's been a change or two, but more things than not have remained the same. Houston is still searching for its first Super Bowl win. They're still looking for even an appearance in the big game. And the Texans have yet to win a divisional playoff football game. It feels unfair to say the Texans are the only team to never make a conference championship. I mean, it's true, but that's sort of picking on the fat kid. It's important to note with this that the Texans are the babies of the league. In fact, if we only count from after the year 2002, their first season, well, plenty of teams haven't made a conference championship. And some, the Browns, the Lions, the Dolphins, have probably sucked even more than the Texans over the last 2 decades. But what those teams and basically everyone else has that the Texans uniquely lack is a history. Some sort of past, at least older successes to fall back on. The Houston Texans, however, have only ever known failure. That brings us to the question I pose, my hypothesis, you could say. What if the Houston Texans' entire franchise never existed? Just poof, out of thin air. The NFL plays out just how it did, but everything Houston Texan related suddenly gone, vanished. Would much truly change at all? For a team without a Super Bowl win, without an MVP, without much impressive baggage from any time, could you wipe away their entire history and see no changes? I wanted to find out. Yeah, I did it. I walked through every Texans season and statistically eliminated each game they ever played. But we need some ground rules first. In this universe, we'll say Houston got passed for an expansion team, just like LA, and the NFL just quit trying and rolled on with 31 teams. But we need a little more than that. We have to accept the NFL still realigns into 8 divisions. There's no way I can undo that. And the AFC South is just a little 3-team division who stands strong. In addition, every player who was ever on the Texans doesn't go play somewhere else. They too are just poofed out of existence for however long they were a Texan. Everything not related to the team still happens exactly the same. We're not judging the impact of removing the team. We are retroactively erasing them from existence to see what changes, if anything. Here's year 1. And here's how I erased a football team from recorded history. Going game by game, I took the win or loss away from every team that played the Texans. For example, the Colts beat them twice in this first season of 2002. That means the Colts record drops from 10-6 to just 8-6. They lose those 2 wins. After doing this with every game, I reseeded the playoff teams according to the new records. On each step will be that year's full playoff bracket. Everything in white is completely unchanged. So this first year, the Texans had absolutely no effect on how the NFC playoffs went. That's not crazy surprising. They only play 4 teams in the NFC every year. Now, in yellow, you see everything that differs from real life. The moments where the Texans actually had an impact. If the whole name is yellow, that means the team wasn't originally playing in that round of the playoffs, but now are. If just a number is yellow, that team was still playing in that round in real life, just as a different seed. So you can pretty much use the color yellow to establish the moments where the Texans being there and existing actually mattered. Sometimes there's a game that didn't happen, and I have to give my best educated guess on who would win it based on if the teams played each other at all that year in the regular season, how they performed in the playoffs, and how I thought they would play each other. And just so we're on the same page here, the Steelers finished as the 3 seed in real life in 2002. However, they lost a game to the Texans this year. So when I took that loss away from their record, it was enough to shoot them up to the 1 seed. Overall though, for this 2000 season, in the end, not a ton changed. The Buccaneers would still play and beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl. We can see that 1 out of the 4 conference finals teams would be different, which is at least somewhat of a shift. And I ran this formula through every game of every season since 2002. Just before I show you the results, I want to make sure we both know what we're going to be missing out on. Snapping the Texans out of existence like this, we're losing the memories. And with no trace of this team, there's some pretty awesome memories we lose forever. Memories like in 2011, when, after a whole decade, the Texans finally made the playoffs for the first time ever. 10 long years it took them. Here's the last 4 expansion teams in the NFL and how long it took them to make a playoff appearance. Now, to be fair, the NFL made it a little tougher on expansion teams after the Panthers and Jaguars got out so hot, but the Browns faced the same rules, and that doesn't excuse this type of discrepancy. How about a couple years later, in 2013, week 2 of the season, the Texan legend Matt Schaub himself threw a pick 6 against the Titans. Then, in week 3, he threw another one. Then, another. And one more, for good measure. 4 weeks in a row. Matt Schaub holds the record for most consecutive games in NFL history with a pick 6. One of the few Texans franchise records that beats out the whole rest of the league. And even as of today, the Texans have just one Hall of Famer who has ever played for their team. Do you know who it is? Seriously, can you guess it? No cheating? It's not J.J. Watt. He's first ballot for sure, but he hasn't been retired long enough. It's not Andre Johnson. He's considered one of the better guys to not make it. No, it's Ed Reed, who had a short 8-month stint with the Texans for just part of 2013. But Ed has gone on to say nothing but bad things about Houston, about the organization, and about the people in it. It's not necessarily sad that they only have one Hall of Famer. They've only played 22 seasons, just not quite long enough to get guys voted in. But it is sad that the one guy they do have in the Hall is an openly anti-Texan critic. There's the way too massive contract they handed to Brock Osweiler after he had barely proved anything, and there's the 2006 draft, when everyone was waiting to see if the Texans would draft Reggie Bush or Vince Young with the first pick. They shocked the entire world by taking defensive end Mario Williams over both the college superstars. And this wasn't even a terrible pick in hindsight, it kind of worked out, but who does that? The Houston Texans do that. No one else. And I think that's enough teasing. Here's the outcome of every NFL season since 2002, with the Houston Texans removed completely. I'll loosely narrate your journey so no one gets lost, but please, enjoy the ride. Lots of white. Remember, that means the Texans made no impact on the season. 2005, we get our first full white year. They literally could not have been there, and nothing would have changed. And it happened 2 years in a row. – 2008's a special one. Both the conference championships get a new team in there, but we still get the same Super Bowl. And that's a pattern you might start to be noticing. (2013 and 14, another 2 seasons of perpetual sameness with only 31 teams. It's like they were never there. Here we're getting into the years where the Texans actually made the playoffs sometimes, but still, no repercussions from wiping a team out of reality. And that's it. Caught up to the present. modern times. What'd you notice? I'll give you the headline. No Super Bowl winner changed. No Super Bowl loser changed. I removed an NFL team from ever existing, and it didn't change a single Super Bowl. Would NFL teams have even noticed if the Texans were gone? Only 7 out of 84 conference championship teams would be different. The Texans have barely even changed the Final Four in the NFL every year. This is possibly the most despairing yet astounding sports phenomenon I have ever witnessed. And I can now say with confidence, you could quite literally remove the Houston Texans from all recorded NFL history and see almost no major impact. Thank you.